So welcome everyone to the first of the Train the Trainer advanced group preparation sessions. This one is specifically for catalogs for requisitioners. So we'll be talking about the assets that go along with that particular virtual instructor-led training that's part of our overall new EVA platform curriculum. So let me bring up my slides and share my screen with you. It's a little bit different for me because I'm used to having two monitors. And now since I'm on vacation, I can't bring my whole monitor set up, so I just have my laptop. So bear with me for just a moment. Excellent. Okay. Move these over here. So before we begin, I do want to talk about a little bit with our Zoom capabilities that we have. As I mentioned, if you joined a little late, you'll be hearing it for the first time, that we are doing a meeting version of Zoom today rather than the webinar version, so that we can utilize our breakout rooms, which is going to help us gather your feedback, let you talk amongst yourselves, all of that good stuff. So as a result, there is no Q&A that's part of this particular format, but we do have annotation finally. Remember when we tried to work that out and somebody, I think it was Dean, thank you Dean, told me that, hey, that doesn't work when you're in the webinar, but now we can use it. So just wanted to remind everyone of that. And I'm sure you have seen this awesome team before. I guess that makes it look like I'm saying I'm awesome too, but you know, why not? We're all awesome. So if you don't know me or haven't met me over one of these webinars or meetings yet, my name is Sarah Lewis. I am the training lead for EVA at DGS for the new platform. Love being in this role, super excited. Continue to be super excited as we see more assets and kind of really make the picture around what this training is going to look like a little more clear. We really think it's revolutionizing the way we're going to train, not only initial training, but also as it continues in the future. Then we have Jamie and Amani. They are our fantastic senior consultants from CGI that I work closely with. And then also Kaylee, who is from InfoPro. She is actually located in Chicago, so 1 hour behind us today. So she even had to get up a little bit earlier than all of us to join. And along with Jamie and Amani and Kaylee, there are obviously people that are working with them too to make this all possible. But these are the three people that really have to hear from me, hear me complain, vent, all that good stuff, and they've been wonderful. So you might hear from them today as we go through the session at one place or the other. They're either going to be joining when we talk about feedback from your breakout rooms, but they'll also be joining if we have time for questions at the end, which I will talk about in a second. But wanted to reintroduce you all to this awesome training team so that everybody is familiar with their beautiful faces. So let's take a look at this timeline of where we are, where we've been, and where we're going. So I do want to talk a little bit, spend a little bit of time on this slide before I go into the agenda for this. So we have completed content drop 2 almost. Feedback is due by close of business today. So you've seen a lot of training assets so far. And I know that this is a really busy time because I know that in addition to this training role that you have taken on, you also have your regular duties. So I appreciate you. The EVA team appreciates you, DPS appreciates you, we all appreciate everything you're doing. We know that this week was the first week where you were reviewing assets while at the same time practicing some teach back sessions. So I know that it's a little much, but you are helping us get to that end goal of the successful new platform. So I do want to clarify that one group preparation session Each one is dedicated to one subject area, and there are 6 subject areas for each, or for the VILTs. Virtual instructor-led training is what I mean by VILT. So this one is the catalogs for requisitioners. Then next week we will do P2P requisitions, followed by P2P orders, sourcing, contracts, and catalogs for suppliers. So these are the 6 main subject areas that the VILT sessions will cover. And as a reminder, the VILT sessions are the assets where an instructor will be leading them live. All of the other assets are self-paced, which is really what we were looking to do, as we discussed in previous meetings, with what the current modern learner wants to see. They want those on-demand self-paced, along with these interactive sessions. So just want to remind everybody that this session is dedicated to the catalogs for requisitioners. So we might also be doing some general Q&A sessions, which you see here, interactive Q&A sessions. Those are the broader meetings where we will be discussing everything. What are your questions? What do you want to know that you feel hasn't been clear? And I know that there can be a lot of ambiguity around what we're doing because it's a new platform, right? We're all learning this together. So you're going to have questions. You've had great questions so far. So just be looking forward to those. And we'll kind of see if there's an interest in having 1 or 2, or I'm thinking we might just need 2, but we're flexible. That's what we are as we're going through this implementation process. So I also know, and I've been sensing in some of the feedback, there's still some anxiety, which is totally normal. I want to acknowledge that anxiety because it's something I think that we're all feeling. But I really think that if we can remind ourselves that this is kind of, in addition to the Train the Trainer program, a pilot to the actual training program our end users will be going through. So if I could urge you, and I know this is tough, especially with everything we have going on, stay open-minded, stay flexible, stay positive. You guys have been doing a great job of that so far. I know that the unknown can really make you feel anxious. It absolutely makes me feel anxious sometimes, but I am focusing on the positive, and I know that we will all make this the best training program that it can be. Finally, in case you didn't see the email that I sent out right before this meeting, you should now have access to UAT. So we're using the UAT environment for our trainers while the training environment is being stood up. So this also is kind of a unique opportunity for you as a trainer, right? Because you also have the ability that if you notice an issue, that you can actually report it. And I've also included the link in the email I sent out prior to this call with that information. So in addition to all the work you're doing, we thought maybe this might not only reduce some anxiety, but it's a little plus for you as a trainer that others might not have right now, which is to access that UAT environment, play around, poke around, get comfortable with doing some demos on your own, practice demos. And if you notice anything, of course, I have to, again, just remind you, let us know through that feedback form, the tracking that's tracking the issues. So Lisa was nice enough to share that with me and was nice enough to let us be in UAT, because as you all know, she is the fantastic lead of our testing. So just wanted to go through that briefly. And thank you all, as always, for being here today. We are excited to get these advanced group sessions started. So let's talk a little bit about what the agenda is going to look like today. So first, we're going to do some reflection. We're going to take a look back at those self-paced learning assets and training guides and kind of get your feedback on what was that like? What did you think? Yes, you've provided our feedback so far. It's been wonderful, and we are working on updates. But this is really just a opportunity for reflection. But then we're also going to do some preparation. So we're going to talk about looking forward, focusing on best practices, also talking about maybe anticipated questions from some of our end users and how we handle those anticipated questions. So this really is to prepare you as you continue to move along in the curriculum as a trainer and let you build that confidence so that when it is your time to lead one of the virtual instructor-led training sessions for your end users, you feel prepared. And then we'll also talk about next steps after all of that. There will be time at the end for questions, but keep in mind we are doing those breakout rooms. So if for some reason we're not able to get to questions or all of the questions that you have, as I've said, you ask fantastic ones, please make sure that towards the end that you put those in the chat so I can make sure that they're captured and I can make sure that we get you an answer. So here's our first little interactive part of today. And so these are the 3 assets that really related to the catalogs for requisitioners. I know you looked at way more than this. And remember that in my communications to you, I mentioned that you might be reviewing things out of order, or you might be reviewing things that don't necessarily have to do with the advanced group preparation session that's coming up. And again, that's the nature of a pilot. And that will all be organized once this is rolled out to the end users. But these are really the 3 main assets from the first content drop that focus on catalog shopping for requisitioners. So I am going to enable my annotation, and feel free to put a drawing stamp. There's a little stamp with a heart or a star or a check mark that you can use to put a little mark next to one of these 3 that you found most valuable. Which one did you like the most? Which one did you think that your end users are really going to utilize and find helpful? So I'm seeing a lot of catalog shopping, the e-learning. That's fantastic. Got 1 for catalog maintenance, the PDF, got 2 for there. We're not big fans of the assessment, and that's okay. And maybe it's just not most valuable to you, right? Because that's just a knowledge check. So the actual learning, I'm happy to see, is super popular and something that you find valuable. I think the e-learnings are fantastic. I think that it will help our end users, give them something to refer back to. Thank you, Mary. I see that you liked the assessment. I also enjoy those as well. And I think that really the takeaway from this is that we are utilizing all of these to make sure that our training program is a valuable one where people are learning a system that they will feel comfortable using on a daily basis, similar to the current EVA. So thank you all for that. Close my annotation for right now. And then another part of the interactive is we're gonna, there we go. So let me bring up a poll, which means I'm gonna need to stop sharing my current screen. So give me just a moment and I will bring up the poll. So this poll question is, what was your overall impression of the materials on catalogs for requisitioners? Was it great? Did you think this is fantastic? Was it average, or were you not really impressed by what we have? We really want to see what you have to say. So we have about 30% of people participating. It's climbing, it's climbing. I'm getting great, I'm getting average. And feel free to be honest, like as Shane has mentioned multiple times, this is a feedback loop. So we have the opportunity to make these things even better for everyone. But I'm seeing great and then mostly average. Let's see if I can get up a little bit higher on the people that have participated, and then I'll end the poll so everybody can see the results. Okay. Sitting steady at 71%. So let's share the results. So you can see that a lot of you thought it was great. The majority are like, hey, it's average. We might be getting there. And some of you are not impressed. So hopefully I can turn your mind around and show you some things today, either through discussion or through subsequent content drops that you might be a little bit more impressed. But thank you for sharing that. I really do appreciate it. So let's go back to our slides. Okay, so the moment I know that everyone has been looking forward to is our breakout rooms. So here's what we're going to talk about in the breakout rooms. We're going to talk about what are the best practices around these individual categories that we use as trainers. So went forward. Presentation style and communication. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about how somebody presents and communicates whatever the topic is that they're teaching about and teaching the learners. What's a best practice for presentation style and communication? For technology, also for PowerPoint, for Zoom technology, not only Zoom, but also other types of virtual meeting platforms. So Google Meets, or you might be using Microsoft Teams. Just in general, what are some best practices there? Also, what are some best practices as you show system tasks and demos? So that's going to be that UAT access that we're talking about, and that's what you'll get to use as you're demoing for your end users. Remember, I mentioned towards the beginning, talking about responding to learner questions. What are some best practices there? There also might be a best practice that doesn't fall into any one of those 4 categories. So other best practices are also totally open to discussion as well. So let's talk about what we're going to do from a steps standpoint in your breakout rooms today. So first, you'll select one leader who will take notes and report back to the larger group. So I know everybody's like, oh, I don't want to do that, but I'm sure you have an outgoing person in every group. And I promise we won't make you talk for that long, but just so we have somebody that can report out on what was discussed in your breakout rooms. Again, talk about those best practices from the previous personal experience that have been helpful in the past. Doesn't have to be something from each category. You can focus on one or multiple ones. And then also, if you want to, brainstorm a list of anticipated questions that learners may ask during the Q&A portion of this particular virtual instructor-led training. So just as a reminder, here are those categories, and I will attempt to also type them in the chat. Okay, so we are going to do breakout sessions now. Let me stop sharing. And we're going to have about 10 breakout rooms, and I'm going to have them assign people automatically. So we're going to have about 12 to 15 participants per room. We're going to give you about 10 minutes to discuss this, and we will report back then. And I'll send a reminder when there is probably a 2-minute reminder, just to let you know when to wrap things up. Okay. And I will open all the rooms. Okay, so welcome back from your breakout rooms. So what I'm going to do is go one room at a time and allow folks to discuss some of what they talked about. I do want to share my screen for a brief moment so that we can bring up some of the guidelines. just so we can make sure we stay on time. So for the group report outs, before we get started, leaders, I'll just ask you to unmute yourselves when I get to your group, and then choose one best practice or one anticipated question that you guys talked about. Try your best not to repeat anything that's already been said. I know that can be tough. So if you want to say, hey, we echo what group 4 or 5 said, that's fine, but try to limit yourselves to 1 minute. We do have a big group here, and I want to make sure that we get through all of your wonderful feedback. So without any further ado, let's do room 1. Who was the leader from room 1? This had Sherry, Cliff, Donna, Kaylee, Kim, Laura Lee, Lisa, Minerva, Rebecca, Stephanie, Teresa, and Thomas.
I was in room 1, and if everyone would unmute themselves, I took notes. I can lead, and then if others can assist me if I miss something. Our group targeted the best practices, and I think the focus was on development and rollout of training, the variations, because we all are in different environments. Some are still remote, some are back on campus. But some of the shared points were development of a guide that speaks to your internal processes, taking the generic template and making it your own and interjecting your on-campus business practices to it. Training in several environments. I know at Radford University, Kim mentioned doing recorded sessions. We have D2L open labs for the one-on-one. And our goal is after we get up and running to still have that option of open labs and a system of communication, because there'll be ongoing questions. Be prepared. One option was practice within your department before you put anything out. Make sure you're comfortable with the material and you know how it works, what you're talking about. So feel comfortable. And here at Radford, if we panic, we're going to set the whole campus in a panic. So making sure you understand and you're confident about what you're talking about. Know your training material before you train others.
Absolutely. That are all great best practices. Thank you, group 1. It sounds like you had a good discussion. So group 2, we have Capri, Denise, Karen, Casey, Laura, Lauren, Michelle, Myra, Paula, Sherry, Shova, Tammy, and Tony. Who wants to report out for the group on that one?
So, hi, this is Denise. I would actually say Tony was probably more of our leader, but I definitely did take some notes there, so I may refer to him for a few things. So when it came to best practices for the presentation style and communication, a few points we hit on were making sure, one, the camera's on, it's well lit, that you stay within the frame. If your background is too busy so that it's not a distraction to the rest of the team, blur out your background or put up one of the screens where it's not distracting. Obviously make sure as much as possible that you're in a quiet place without those distractions so that you can focus, or that the rest of the people can also focus. Many of us have pets, that kind of thing, dogs are barking in the background, playing in the background, children. So as much as possible, keep out those distractions. We also talked about the PowerPoint and the Zoom technology. I think it was Tony was talking about how you can set up the polls beforehand and name them. I think you said you set them up in Word. Is that what it was, Tony? And
oh yeah, if you're going to use them over and over again, I usually save them in Word, because you can't. I haven't found a way in Zoom to copy a poll from one meeting to another. So I set them up in Word just so I can cut and paste them in easily if I'm going to keep using them over and over again, rather than try and rewrite them every time. It makes it a little easier to save it in Word.
Absolutely. It sounds like, and something like a background might seem, just a little detail, but it's a big one, because you want people to be focusing on you as the trainer and not something that's necessarily in your background. And making sure that those poll questions, if you're going to use them, a little trick, like Tony said, putting those into a Word document so that you have them and can refer back to them and use them again. Great job, room 2. Okay, room 3, who did you guys choose as your leader? It was Aaron, Ange, Angela, Betty, Corey, Hunter, Mary, Michelle, and Yvette. Who was the leader from that group?
We didn't actually choose a leader. We were unsure what we were supposed to be discussing, so we just kind of talked amongst ourselves.
Great. Do you have anything that you guys talked about that you think would be helpful for the group to know?
I think so. We mainly were talking about our different positions within our organizations and what we did. Like somebody was saying they weren't a buyer and they were explaining what they did, and that was it. I mean, nothing major.
And sometimes it's just helpful for us as trainers to talk amongst ourselves and say, what the different positions that we have and what we do. So not a problem. I'm sorry that that it was not more clear for you guys, but glad that you guys got to still have a good talk. So thank you. Good job, room 3.
Thank you.
Now room 4, we have Barbie, Christine, 2 Elizabeths, 2 Kims, Lauren, Pat, Rafaela, Susan, and Tracy. Who did you all choose as your leader? Whoever it is, please feel free to unmute yourself and report out to the group.
We didn't really pick a leader, but I was taking notes, so I'll keep it with under the minute. And we said best practices for presenting in general is practice, practice, practice. Make sure that you're familiar with the material that you are presenting. That'll make you a little bit more comfortable in general in speaking and also answering any questions. And then when it came down to the material in general, use the slides as guides, but remember you will need to communicate outside of what is on the slides. Try to use your own experiences if possible to help enhance the material being presented.
That is a great best practice and something that I find that has really helped not only learners, but also you as a presenter, because if we're telling personal stories, it kind of puts everybody at ease. You're being a little vulnerable, you're making a connection with the learners. So I think that is a great point. And as you said, I'm a big proponent of not necessarily reading off the slides as much as speaking to them. I'm not a fan of huge text heavy slides. So hopefully that's what you're seeing. And hopefully that those slide decks are really giving you a basis to make this training your own at your individual entities. Great job, room 4. Room 5, we have Alexandra, Angelique, Chris, Cindy, Cynthia, Ahmad, Lawrence, Marjorie, Matthew, Sharon, 2 Sharons, and Tracy. Which of you all are the leader for group 5?
I think I've been voluntold for that position. So there was a little bit of confusion in the group to start with, because I think there was some unclarity about the assignment of the group. And so, but we did talk about kind of the slide drops that have come, and there was some confusion about some of the content that's being dropped. And we talked about, I think, how important and helpful it'll be to actually get into UAT, so that when we start doing these trainings, that we'll actually have some hands-on experience. That would really help us. But it was noticed that some of the content drops seem to be, as you said earlier, out of order. And so that's even causing some confusion for the trainers, because they're not sure exactly how it's going to work. Some had expressed the fact that they've only been in current EVA for a few years. And since they've only been in current EVA for a few years and they're still training people on how to use current EVA, they're not sure how they're going to train people to use new EVA, EVA Next, whatever we're calling it for the sake of this meeting. So there was a little bit of that as well. But we're encouraged to use the UAT to actually get in there and follow along with the trainings.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, Matthew. Yeah, and I know that there has definitely been some confusion. It's kind of the nature of the beast, right? We have this tight timeline, but also it's this new platform, and it's going to be something that I think the picture will get clearer and clearer as we go on. I'll kind of discuss a little bit towards the end of this kind of what we're envisioning as far as the VILT sessions go and what you'll be using, because I do know there's also been some confusion around that. But that's great for us to hear, because we want to make sure that we're being as clear as possible. And I know that it's not ideal when things are out of order and not going to be presented the way that the end users are going to consume that information. And also, like you said, we want to make sure that we're confident in the system as trainers, since we're going to be training those end users. So hopefully that UAT access and that poking around will make you feel a little better. So great job. Thank you. See, confusion adds to good questions and then can provide clarity. So thank you. So let's go to room 6. Adrian, Ashley, Bree, Connie, Dan, Dean, Felicia, Melissa, Sandra, Shane. I don't think Shane was in that room. Might have just put him in there because he was in the main room with me. Stasia and Stephanie. Who was your leader?
Hi, I'm not really Connie Hall. My name's Crystal Hypes. Apparently I clicked on the wrong meeting invite to join, so there you go. So we talked about what we've done in the past and what we think is going to happen. So our best practices that we think are unique are practice it repeatedly, but with someone, so that you become really, really familiar with the material. To not overwhelm folks, to take it slow. That way it's in chunks they can manage. And this is one that, yeah, is very vital. Make sure you have a positive attitude about it. Even if you're not quite okay with it yourself, make sure you have a positive attitude and be honest with the end users as well. You know, it's going to be a transition. It's going to be a process, but we're going to do it, right? One of the participants, Adrian from VDSS, said that they've started a focus group of users to work on the transition of the system. And they're looking at the roadblocks and challenges and how to overcome those. And they've also scheduled a week-long mandatory EVA training in January for all users, so that they're, you know, getting way ahead of the curve and, you know, making sure you have everything planned out.
That is.
And she said also that her people don't like the word conversion, but they want the word archive used.
It's like particular words they either like or dislike, right?
Yeah, it causes some sort of sensation for whatever reason.
Sure. I mean, it's a negative connotation that might be based on past experience. So hopefully we get to a point where those words aren't as triggering in a negative way. But I really, really love what you guys talked about with, you know, being positive. And it's not just positive to make sure everybody else is positive. It's that positivity that I think really shows the confidence that you have as a trainer. And if you're confident, whoever you're teaching is going to be confident in what they're learning. But also, like you said, acknowledging that this is a new platform, which means there's going to be some struggles, there's going to be some growing pains, so that they know it's normal. It's kind of like what we all talk about as trainers. We're all kind of like, some things are still confusing, but as long as we, you know, we're all in this together and we keep going and keep persevering, we'll get through this, and eventually we'll get to laugh about the time that the new platform was implemented and how we all thought it was hard to use, and now we just use it every day. So that was great. Thank you so much. Okay, let's go to room 7. We have Barbie, Becky, Belinda, Brandon, Connie, Debbie, Jennifer, Joanne, Louisa, and Teresa.
Hi, we didn't select an official leader, but I do have some notes, and I am not the real Barbie Edwards. I also somehow clicked on the wrong link, but a couple of things that we as a group talked about, giving folks an updates now and trying to build some excitement. Coming soon, new EVA, new functionality, to hopefully try to minimize some of the anxiety and potential frustration. We really mostly talked about the need to streamline and simplify. We found that for all of our training programs here, that's been successful. So for a new system, a new look, a new year, lots of new things coming, keep it simple. We plan to really focus on the basics, just A to B, how to develop, submit requisitions, track status, approve requisitions, and not necessarily go into all the bells and whistles initially. But as we have continuing training sessions throughout the year, kind of introduce some of those bells and whistles. The group kind of talked about the value of hands-on training initially. A lot of people learn by kind of doing, so that hands-on training, and then supported by step-by-step user guides that, again, streamline and simplify. Folks can open the step-by-step user guide on one screen, have EVA opened on the other screen, and just take them through the process step by step. The need for kind of increased customer service and answering. We have what's called an EVA help desk, which is really just our amazing administrative team, which the real Barbie Edwards leads. And so folks have direct access to immediate response and assistance when they're in the middle of something and may get hung up. And that we're hoping will minimize some of the frustration. But just in general, just the need to streamline and really focus on how to get the basics of a purchase order out the door.
Absolutely. And I like that, keeping it simple and streamlined, especially for day one, so that everybody can get the business done that they need to. And obviously training will continue to be something that's available, improved on, added to. And I have to say, I'm just so impressed with everybody that's mentioned what they do at their individual entities. Don't think for a second that I haven't noticed some things in your signature lines in your email, getting your end users excited. The fact that you have these EVA help desk, it's fantastic. It's because of things like that and participation and the willingness to adopt this new system. It's really will make success really achievable. And the other thing, I forget what the other thing I was going to say was. My mom used to say it must have been a lie if you forget it, but I'll think of it. But yes, thank you. I know what I was going to say. The other thing is that we, as an EVA team, will also be having what we're referring to as office hours after the go live, for exactly the reason you mentioned, which is, we're on here, I can't figure out what to do. It's a new system. You can give, I'm not sure what the actual format is, if it's going to be a call or an email, but we'll make sure that people get that support that they need. So thank you. That was appreciated. Great job, Group 7. And now Group or Room 8, Becky, Denise, Gary, Kevin, Maureen, Melinda, Monique, Roy, Sandra, and Whitney. Who is the leader of your group?
Well, I think Denise took the scary first step and talked first. So shout out to Denise. I took the notes right there with Crystal on the staying positive. Trainers have to buy in, and along the same lines, letting them know that we're here to help, that there is somebody at their organization who they can easily reach out to. A big part for us was knowing your audience, the different skill sets and learning styles that folks are going to have through this process. And then lastly, a thing that hasn't maybe been covered as much is keeping things on track when you're doing the training with your folks. Have an agenda, slow and steady through your slides and what you're covering, but making sure we're staying focused on what we're covering at this point in time and sticking to the layout so we can cover all of our bases.
I love that. And that can sometimes be the hardest part of training, is facilitating and knowing when to, move the agenda along, because people get not only passionate about what they're learning, but also sometimes that anxiety gets a lot of questions going. So I think that is fantastic, making sure that we are staying on that agenda, also because we want to be respectful of everyone's time, not only as trainers, but also for our learners as well. Man, you guys had great discussions. I don't think we've had a repeat so far, and we have a lot of rooms. So great job, room 8. Room 9, and then we'll go on to room 10. You guys are saying a lot of things, and to that point, I should probably be keeping it on schedule since we have about 5 minutes left. So in room 9, Benita, Heather, Jennifer, Lynn, Mary, 2 Marys, 2 Jennifers, Peter, Scott, Sylvester, Tiffany, and Tyler. Who was your leader?
Well, this is Scott. I took the notes, so I guess I'll go over it. We had pretty good discussions. There's one thing I added just now, I thought was a big issue. So one of the items we talked about is being able to have the end user remotely, I forgot the terminology they use, to be able to let them be in the, let's say, UAT environment where we can screen share and let them take control. And we can go over that with the, because a lot of people are more visual. So by allowing them to actually work it with you is very helpful. The other important thing that I wanted to add is I think before we put out any program, the important thing is to make sure we have executive staff input, because they need to help us make sure it can happen. So if we don't have their input, it makes it very hard to get the users on board.
Absolutely.
Our stuff to share.
Yeah, we need that executive buy-in, right, in order to make sure that adopting that new system is something that is positive. And like you said, and I think a few other people have touched on this too, it's important to know that, you know, different people learn different ways. So I think that the different modalities that we have will hopefully allow people to kind of touch on those different ways that they learn, and that taking control of the screen, for example, and letting them play around and do it will build that confidence as well. Thank you, group 9. Great job. And I keep saying group, but it's saying rooms. Group 10 is our last one. We have Amy, Christina, Jean, Jennifer, Jim, Kim, Kylie, Michael, Madru, Sharita, and Tammy. Who was your group leader, and who wants to talk for the group?
So we had a couple of folks that had some technical issues, because I did scribe what we're supposed to do, but I asked for someone to be the leader, of course, with crickets. So I'm sorry, it's me. So
don't apologize, I'm glad.
Yeah, so I think everybody kind of touched on everything, and to summarize us up really quick is to just collaborate with the coordinator role, because the coordinator role was mentioned in the PowerPoint slides, and that can kind of make sure who's going to do what, who's going to monitor the chat, just deciding on whether to answer questions as you go along or answer questions at the end. When to answer questions, how to answer questions. And so recommendation for TTTs that are not accustomed to doing training, make sure that you practice answering questions, because you want to maintain a positive and professional training environment. And I told them I was giving them training advice, not as an expert trainer, because I told them I still have butterflies in my stomach when I train, but just in training altogether. And I want to circle back to what my summit teammate Matt said earlier. If you're not sure, and I think I speak for all of my colleagues on the policy consultant and review team, if you're not sure of training or you're not sure, I encourage you to reach out to your account executive, because we can be your support system for your weaknesses in the training area. And we are coming up, and I'm gonna look at Ange as I say that, we are coming up with some strategies. Ange is our team leader for the training for the group. So we've been discussing some strategies that may be able to help some of you. So don't feel like you're by yourself. You always have a friend. So thanks, that's it, bye.
See,
And I'm just
Sharita,
I'm gonna add one thing to that. Sorry, I'm just gonna add on the heels of that I did put in the chat if everybody didn't see it, that there is a link to an article by Zoom on how to create meeting templates. Because I know that Tony, thank you for asking that great question about, I don't want to copy and paste those polling questions. Great. Zoom has great resources in general, and they have help and support. Like you can just search the topic. So if you can't find it there, you're always welcome to ask me. I am by far no like expert, but I do use it on a weekly basis and have been doing it since March of 2020. So there you go.
you're being too humble, Kim. You are definitely an expert, and thank you for putting that in. And thank you, Sharita, for ending on that. Yes, always our account executive team is fantastic. And Ange and Kimberly, who have really been helping me, have also just been rock stars with this. So thank you all for your report outs. I really hope that that was helpful. It was helpful for me to hear also. None of us are total training experts. So it's good to learn from each other, I think. So I am going to go back to the slide deck briefly. I know that we are coming up on time, and I want to make sure, as we talked about, that I respect everyone's time, since this is kind of considered a training similar to what we'll be doing. So let me just make sure. Put it in slideshow mode, and we did that. So this is similar to the one that we looked at earlier. Again, be on the lookout for those interactive Q&A sessions that are broader. We'll be scheduling those and putting them also on the training website. The other thing I want to mention briefly is we do have another content drop coming, and we'll also be doing the second of these advanced group sessions next Friday. I know an email or the invitation hasn't been sent out yet. It will be at the exact same time. We're trying to have them on Fridays at 10 a.m. so everybody can kind of get used to that meeting cadence. So we are actually at time, but I hopefully you have put whatever your questions are in the chat, and I will work on getting you answers to those. And I will either hand those off to Kim so that she can post them, or maybe even post them on the training site. We'll talk about what's best for that. And as I said, I know that we are at a little 1 minute over. The only other thing I want to mention before I let you go is that there is also been a lot of questions about how we're going to be presenting the VILT material. Our awesome VIP team at DPS is helping us with this, and we're kind of still flushing some things out and have a kind of final meeting to discuss that on Monday. So I will have some more information for you on that next week. And hopefully it will, again, that's kind of the theme of today, is clarifying and clearing that confusion so that we can all be the best trainers we can be. So thank you all so much. As always, you are just rock stars and had some great feedback, especially on a Friday morning. So thank you so much, and have a fantastic rest of your day. Bye.